Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back, everybody. All of us, go through challenging times from time to time. We're actually, I think most would agree, at this period of our lives, there's a lot going on out there that presents some additional challenges. I don't do politics. I'm just stating facts here. How do you move forward when things present? How do you find the fuel within? How do you find the hope? We're going to talk about that today. And she is the one that gives people courage to move their lives forward in many different ways. Courage to Shine, as a matter of fact, which is the name of her book. And she has coached a lot of people to move their life forward, both professionally and personally. So if you're feeling stuck, you're stressed out, you need some inspiration, the next 25 or so minutes are for you. She's our Professional of the Year. Sara Regester is back with us. How are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be back today.
Lots to talk about with this word hope.
Hope. Yes.
I'm gonna step back and let you tell us your definition of hope. But I have lots of questions regarding this.
Well, it's no secret that it's wild times out there in the world. And there's things we can control and things we can't control. And there's there's, a lot going on for people and how can we keep our faith moving forward? How can we keep ourselves on track? And what I recognize sometimes is that people don't understand how to connect to hope and how hope is actually something to have some awareness around and how you plug in to something greater than yourself or the people that support you and having strategies and tools that actually fuel your hope. And what came up to me as I was thinking about, wow, there's so much going on. What do the people need today? What's really going to help, your listeners? And I thought about this quote from my book, Courage to Shine. And when I was very first waking up spiritually, really jumping on that transformation train, life was happening fast. I didn't know what was going on. It was like the ground was falling, from underneath my feet.
Mm-hmm.
And someone sent me this quote, and it impacted me so strongly that I literally put it on the first page of my book. And I'm going to just read it as our opening to how we're going to think about hope.
Sure.
Hope is faith is one aspect where we're going to focus on hope today. And in this little quote, this comes from Cynthia Ocelli, and it said, "For a seed to achieve its greatest expression, it must come completely undone. The shell cracks, the insides come out, and everything changes. To someone who doesn't understand growth, it would look like complete destruction."
There's a lot to process there, especially what blossoms out of something that cracks and crumbles, i.e. the seed.
And the seed doesn't know what it's going to turn into. It doesn't know exactly what's going to happen. It just knows it needs to keep growing to the light from that dark place inside the soil.
Never thought of it that way. It's pretty impactful when you think of it that way. Because many of us say, love and light. Wish you light, and there's the light. You said the F word, so I'm going to circle back. The word faith.
Faith.
What's the difference between hope and faith?
I think that's a very good question that you're asking me. I'm going to come up with a very reasonable answer. I would say hope is how you're connected to something greater than yourself, something that you trust, and faith is part of hope. You always hear that faith, hope, and charity. Faith is probably more what I can remember my teacher saying is you don't have faith in another individual, but you can have hope. Like you'll hope they make a good choice. You hope they get their way through it. You hope they'll be there to support you. But because people have free will, faith is really like not a good strategy just to lean on faith as something that will support you for follow through or as a strategy. Whereas hope is more internal of how I know what I'm capable of. I know what I need to keep going, or to, as you could say, water the seed so I could keep growing and
Hmm.
nurturing myself. And hope is actually something that when we disconnect from distraction, from anxiety, like life gets busy and we forget, what's important to us. The hope can actually, when we lose it, we spiral into potentially depression, isolation, despair, despondence. It's like the hope is what will turn around when we're going through really rough times and we're withdrawing. So there's a
Hmm.
certain level of introspection and going within that's healthy. But if we stay in that state of isolation, not connecting, not engaging with life, that's where we become hopeless, where we don't
Oh.
truly know what we need for ourselves to get reconnected and plugged back into life, even if it's challenging times for an individual.
Would you say that hope is the goal? There's whatever it is that you were trying to achieve, even if it's happiness, whatever, and call it the hope seed. And would faith be the water for that hope seed?
Faith can be the water for the hope seed
Hmm.
because it's the hope is that what are you doing to take steps towards your spiritual growth? How are you engaging with life to find a solution, to not be stuck, but even if it's a tiny little baby step, to keep moving forward with a step is like no step is too small. We've shared that before. People think
Hmm.
they need to like jump across the abyss. No, you just maybe have to look at the abyss, gaze at it a little bit, and then find your way down through the abyss. And so that's where I would say faith is probably more of a practice of how you practice your spirituality, how you have faith in trusting that someone will, or that life will bring you what you need. But hope is where you're actually taking the steps to make it happen, where you're actually
Hmm.
intentionally choosing to move forward, to go towards your vision, to know that you're going to make it no matter what. And so that's a real internal fuel. That's the hope. And often it's now what people are losing their connection to because they don't know how to find the support they need to kind of lean in to that growth edge or to lean into adversity with tools and strategies that they can actually use as the fuel for the seed to grow.
So I'm going to press the pause button on that for a second. And I agree with everything you're saying. I struggle with one thing. The word hope, I'm trying to verbalize this, but sometimes I feel it comes from a place of lack. For example, you
Mhm.
send an email to somebody and hope you had a great weekend, or I hope that surgery went well, or I hope we have a great time when we get there. Instead of saying we're gonna have a great time when we get there, a more positive
Mm.
look at things. So sometimes I wrestle with, when you in your vocabulary, is it coming from sometimes a place of lack? Like, I hope it's going to be all right. No, it's going to be all right. Don't worry about it. It's going to be okay. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a good question. Right now, if we had longer, let me Google this. Get back to
I don't
the
know.
nuance
It's
of the
just
language.
it's just
Words are
the way I
important.
think about it. And you know
Yeah.
what? Here I want to give you an example because this one just came to mind. I met a friend of a friend last week, and we hit it off. Had a great time. And he needs a job, and this was actually in another country, believe it or not. And his wife is doing remote work, and he's like, "We can't stay here. I have to get a job. I have a second interview coming up for this one job, food and beverage manager at this, facility." He's like, "I hope I get it." And I looked at him and I said, "Dude, you're going to get the job. You are getting that job. Think like you are. It's happening." And I'm not a psychic or anything like that, but he texted me yesterday and he said, "I got the job. I start Tuesday." I'm like, "All right, great." Fantastic. But I kind of reframed it because I'm thinking that, if he went in there, I hope I get it. No, I'm getting this job. I'm here. I have and he knew everything. Like he was like recounting things, strategies and everything. I'm like, you're a genius at this job. It's yours. Um, I don't want to be negative here. I just kind of look at it in terms of vocabulary, the word
And
hope.
that's true. And I can think about how something that we've shared before is that hope is not a strategy. You hope it'll happen. Doesn't say that you're taking the action and the steps forward to make it happen.
Hmm.
And so you want to use your language in a way that I'm going to give my best interview. I'm going to show up as strong as I can. I'm going to make sure I show my skills. That is the strategy of the action you're taking, not that I hope I get the job,
Hmm.
but it is a matter of language of intent. And so we're
Intent.
kind of drifting down the path here of intent in terms of wishing. When hope is a wish, that's not the strategy. But the hope maybe could be that internally, like, I've got this, I got lots of skills to offer, I'm a good candidate for this job, that this is a good fit for me, I'm going for it. That's the hope I'm talking about. The
Hmm.
action forward that's fueled from within.
Yep. Yep.
But it's a great kind of a conversation about how we're using language. And it is come down to if you're using it as a wish, that's not the kind of hope I'm talking about. I'm
Gotcha.
talking about that connection. Something's greater. I got the world around me. I got all the support I need. I've got all of my skills, talents, and abilities. I'm bringing that forward. That's where you're connecting and you have hope as a like the health, happiness, harmony, hope, humor kind of
Well, I got
package.
it. Hope, it's almost as if hope is the thing that you're grabbing for. That's what you're reaching for, not where it's coming from a place of lack, where I hope I get it, but it's more of a I'm hopeful it's happening because I've got everything I need, and it's just that one more push, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all need hope.
Yeah.
This is
So
without a
let's
doubt.
go back to the F word.
Faith.
So if
Okay.
we go back to faith, like I think of faith as more like a religious practice, but really if I take back my own words, which I can, I have free will,
Hmm.
there's something about the faith when it's put with hope is what gives you that connection and vision that there's something greater that has your back, that it's not all up to you in life to make everything happen, that you're part of connection to the world around you, the people around you, the nature around you, the spirit around you. We have all kinds of resources, both seen and unseen. And that's where people disconnect and they think they're all alone on this island of this planet. But we're only alone because we choose to disconnect ourselves. Many of us have forgotten how to replug into all the resources that we actually have around us and accessible to fuel our hope.
Hmm. Well, there's one thing that definitely stands out is, along with everything here, is that faith word,
Mhm.
faith in yourself.
Mhm.
And we didn't go there yet, faith in all this other stuff around you, but having faith in yourself um, gives you hope.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes. Maybe faith is like belief. If you believe in yourself, you have hope.
I think that's it. I think we've dissected this. We started
Without
we
Google.
without Google, we've peeled many layers back, but I thought essentially that's what it is.
Yeah,
The faith versus the hope, or the faith in concert with
right.
the hope.
So if people are busy on their phones or wherever they're reading and scrolling and they're just I'm not saying don't be informed about the world around us,
Hmm.
but it can be a major distraction that sucks the hope and right out of us where we think, the world's over, it's only a matter of time, gloom and doom, and then there you go down that spiral.
Yep.
That's the important cliff of like, okay, where am I going to jump? Am I going to jump into this, gloom and doom? Or am I going to grab onto something that I know is going to carry me forward no matter what? That I have that internal will to meet what I can do in my life to keep myself going when there's things happening around me that, I can be informed about, but I can only impact my own world that I have choices of things I can control, people I'm with, how I'm
Mm.
going to engage with them, how I show up, and to have that internal, I guess, kind of measure of self-worth that I am enough. I do have what I need for this engagement. I am worthy of this next job interview. I'm going to show them what I have. I'm going to shine. I'm going to stay present and connected, and I'm going to hold my space so that they see who I am in the presence, in the conversation, showing up. That's the water of hope fueling the seed that's sprouting in transformation.
So let's say you've got the faith. You've got faith in yourself. You've gotten to that point in your life where, I'm a good person. I finally found myself. Maybe you can actually say, I love myself. Maybe you're there. And congratulations. How do you hold on to hope? How do you keep finding the hope? Is there any exercises, journaling, impactful, things like that?
Yes, it's actually our nature to change. It's our nature to keep moving in a way that supports how we're evolving and growing. And so no matter where we are, at whatever stage of life, it's so essential
Mm,
that we keep meeting our own growth edge, that we keep being curious, that we expand beyond our comfort zone to learn some new things or to see some new perspectives. And
mm,
there's a whole lot of healing that could be going on if we could just broaden our scope a little bit, be a little more curious, and to keep moving in a direction where we're really fueling our growth. It doesn't matter how fast we go. Some people barely scoot, some people take little hops, some people are big jumpers,
hmm.
but we're naturally wired to evolve, to grow, to change on one side. And on the other, we're also wired in our nervous system, our all the wiring of the neurons is very habitually wired to be efficient. So we slip into pattern very easily,
Mm.
but we also regenerate very easily. And so we want to work with both. We want to give ourselves the time and bandwidth to create new patterns and new habits. We want to try new things. And it's our part of our naturalness as humans actually to be curious and to grow in new ways in our lives, whether it's new interests, new people, new job, new skills. It's part of how we're designed to keep evolving. And that's the fuel for hope that no, we're not stuck. Person that's stuck, they've lost their connection to something greater. They've lost connection to the resource circle around them, be it people or the nature or however they can plug into life. And that's where, they get stuck in their own swirl of despair.
I heard something over the weekend that we are wired for instantaneous change, gratification, whatever it might be. Cave person days, you know, need to eat, go out there, find it, get it, done. And we don't know in terms of evolution how to do this bite-sized chunks, slow steps to change. Go to the gym, keep going to the gym, then feel better. Uh, you build muscle and all of that. Why did Amazon get so popular so fast? Click, done.
Mhm.
We're wired that way. So I believe it's a challenge for us to say, oh, it's going to take so long, and then like this step, next step. Is there a way to condition, rewire our brain to realize that it's okay to go slow? It's trust the
Yes,
process, if you will.
absolutely. And so you brought to forward the concept of operational values are those that feel good in the moment. They bring an instant pleasure
Hmm.
or time saver, or that's a value and convenience, value of something that tastes good, value that in the moment is easy, low-hanging fruit. Now, our core values or the long-term values are sometimes the ones that compete with those in the moment values. So
Hmm.
this is where we want to be aware of our choices. And I would say, as a coach helping people make changes in their lifestyle is truly like the plan that you have practiced over time is how you keep practicing the new pattern, the new way that supports your long-term goal or your bigger vision. Now, sometimes you take a sidestep in the moment that feels good, but you get back on the horse because you have a bigger vision you're going towards. So that's a great example of how a coaching program, particularly like my stress mastery programs,
Mm.
help people just recognize it with like tools and strategies. Okay, cake or walk, cake or walk. And if we could take that internal pause for a moment and remember that there are always going to be in the moment things that sound good, but if we can remember the value of what we really desire, and there's enough internal motivation of why it is so important to us to keep going with our steps forward, and the steps need to be broken down and doable, not too big and chunky where we don't stick with it. We need to track our progress, reward
Mm.
ourselves,
Mm.
and have that plan. It needs a plan and it takes the rewiring step that you're talking about is literally 66 to 90 days for those neurons and dendrites to kind of reprogram themselves and rewire into a new pattern, and for the old path to kind of fade into the background. So it's a
I'm
process.
I'm blown away. What you did I hear you right in that 66 to 90 days? This is somebody who researches this and lives this. Not like, anywhere up to 90 days. No, you've identified it because you've helped people, you've lived this. And yes, I've heard much of the same thing that
Mhm.
you need to take the time. And what are these? Essentially, aren't they habits? When you get right back down to the boil it to the basics, we're creating better habits for ourselves.
And we're designed to create patterns and habits, because if we had to relearn how to drive a car every time we got behind the wheel, it'd be kind of scary. So we really conserve energy through our hardwired patterns and habits and things we've learned that we don't even have to think about it, compared to
Hmm.
when we first learned, you had to think about every little step.
Sure.
But so that's why we need to be patient with ourselves in how we navigate that change, that little seed that comes all apart and completely undone, and it doesn't know what's going to pop out of, when it reaches the surface, what kind of plant it's going to be. And so that's where that faith or hope, we can use both, having that, not that I hope I'll make the change, but it's the internal fueling the hope that I'm taking steps, I'm making the change happen. That's hope, that you're in action with it.
Love it. And this is something that you need somebody to walk the journey. I wish I knew you back in the day, gotta tell you. And not because we're here today, but I really mean that. The work, it would a quarter of the time it would take me if I knew that people like you exist. But I didn't then. I kind of just figured it out and still am, like we all are. It's part of a journey, and every day's a different day. Sara, what's the best way to find you?
Best way to find me, my website, directions, the number 4wellness.com. And certainly you can find my book, Courage to Shine, How to Feel Confident Outside Your Comfort Zone. It's on Amazon, Apple Books, Audible for my busy bees who would rather listen than read. And certainly I'm on social media as well.
Always wonderful talking with you. By the way, um, listening to books, I just started getting into that, and I have to
Mhm.
switch it around and listen to yours now because now
Ooh.
now I'm kind of hooked. You can be doing other stuff and still, even though you're pushing a vacuum, you're still retaining the information, as is your subconscious, where it's all happening. Uh, Appreciate you very much, and I hope, like today, the next time we get together, it's going to be impactful for us and everybody else.
Yeah, and just remember, chaos is another word for change. And you too can be that little seed that's going to express itself in a new way.
Cracks are okay in your shell,
Yes.
for sure. All right, we'll catch up next time. We'll be right back. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.